Welcome to the newest episode of Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. I'm your host, Jason Fraley, picking the brains of the top filmmakers, musicians, and artists of our time. Colin Hay of Men at Work performs a pair of shows tomorrow and Wednesday night at the Birchmere in Virginia. I spoke with him about turning his Australian band into a Grammy-winning global phenomenon. Colin, thanks so much for joining us.
Nice to be with you.
What can we expect from this Birchmere show? Are you doing any of the old Men at Work stuff? Is it newer stuff, your solo stuff, or what can we expect from the set?
Well, I always do Men at Work stuff. I'm not crazy, you know. So I still do some of those songs because they're big songs, and a certain number of the audience always like to hear those. But yeah, I'll do some of those. I'm obviously doing some songs from this new covers record, and also some new material that will be out on a new record next year, and then just a few songs from the solo records, you know. So I think that people come, the Birchmere has always been very good to me, you know. So I think that people who come and see me there, they like to hear some new things, you know. So they're very receptive in that area.
Oh, for sure. The name of the show is your newest album. I just don't know what to do with myself. How does that maybe differ from your previous stuff, or?
Well, it's obviously different from any record that I've done before because it's an album of cover material of other people. You know, I've never done that before, so that's a big big departure. I just really did it. It wasn't really a planned record. I was just sitting around as many people were with time on my hands. And I'd already finished the record, which was due to come out next year. So I started recording these covers, and the record company really liked it. And they said, can we release this? Because I'd actually decided to go out on tour, which previously we were undecided about, you know. So because I was going to go out on tour, we decided to release this covers record as kind of an interim record, if you like, you know, because it's not something we really had planned much to do, you know, but it came out so well that we decided to release it.
What all artists do you cover on there?
I'm covering the Beatles and the Kinks and Dusty Springfield and Glenn Campbell and Blind Faith and lots of, you know, great songs that had some kind of impact on me growing up.
You know, before you moved to Australia, growing up in Scotland, what sort of music were you really digging on back then? Was it like the Beatles stuff you're mentioning, or, you know, who were your influences that got you into music in the first place?
Well, I had lots of influences, but I think that probably the Beatles were the main one, you know, that for me there was the Beatles and then it was everyone else, you know. So my mother and father had a music shop in Scotland, so I was surrounded by music. But yeah, but the Beatles were pretty much it for me when I was pre-teenager especially.
What was the music shop called?
James Hay. He was my father, so it was just called his name.
So it's called James Hay. Do you remember going through there, you know, off hours or during hours and just thumbing through all of the albums? Was that like your music education?
Well, yeah, my father my father and I would sit in the store after it was closed, and he would play me records. It was a great moment. I remember that very vividly, you know, because he used to listen to songs because he used to want to know what he was selling, you know. What
brought the family to Australia then? You know, I guess you were like an early teenager, but what made you guys move? Was it a job opportunity or what was it?
Well, we emigrated to Australia. My father wanted to create a better life for his family, so they had what they called an assisted passage there. It only cost £10 to go to Australia that time, so off we went. You know, it was a great thing to do.
And whereabouts? I mean, Australia is a pretty big island. Whereabouts did you guys settle?
We went to Melbourne.
Gotcha. So, all right. So, you growing up in Scotland, listening to music records at your dad's, you know, record shop. You guys moved to Melbourne, Australia. When did you actually pick up an instrument, or decide that you want to start singing, or even start writing songs seriously? You know, you might have dabbled in it a little bit. When did you start being like, you know, I'm going to actually try this?
Before I left Scotland, I was playing music. So from when I was about 12 years old, I started to play.
Gotcha. And then obviously once you're in Australia, you meet your future Men at Work, co-founder, Ron Stryker. How did that meeting actually happen? I'm sure you've told the story a million times, but I need it for posterity. How did you guys actually meet?
We met at someone's backyard in West Melbourne, I think around 1977. He was playing a an acoustic 12-string, and he was playing beautiful guitar. So just a light went off in my head, and I just knew that I wanted to work with that guy.
When did you decide to form Men at Work? Obviously, you added in Jerry, Greg, John, the other band members, but how did you guys form that, and come up with the name too? How did Men at Work come to you?
In the middle of 1979, Jerry joined us, and Jerry joined Ron and I, and then I asked Greg to join. He joined, and then Ron switched from, he was playing bass, he went back to lead guitar, and we asked John to join. John was a friend of Jerry's, and so John joined. In the course of about 2 months, it came together, and Men at Work was a name that we'd thrown into the hat, and we had some gigs to start, so we had to have a name, and so we thought that was a good name. I thought of the name because I was driving around and I would see Men at Work signs everywhere, so I thought that's already in people's heads, so people may well remember that name if they see it.
Well, nice. That's catchier than you could have been called Yield or something. I think Men at Work is catchier.
Yes, that's right. Wrong way, go back.
Yeah, wrong way. One Direction. Oh, that is a title. See, you paved the way for One Direction. All right, so your first album, 81, Business as Usual, was, it was massive. Take me into the recording of Who Can It Be Now? How did that song come about? Right from that saxophone at the beginning, that just pulls us in.
Well, I wrote that song in the middle of the bush. My girlfriend and I used to have some land in South Wales, and so I wrote that just with her and the frogs listening, and it took about 40 minutes, and she said that'll be your first hit, and I believed her. So it was a good moment to come up with something like that. And when we recorded, the producer was very important because he moved that saxophone hook up to the front of the song. So
it came in later in the song, and he said to move it up to the beginning.
Yeah, it used to come in later, which was pretty silly.
I bet you're glad you moved it, because right at the beginning when that sax comes in, this is Men at Work, baby. Yeah. All right, cool. And then that same album also had Down Under, which was, obviously an allusion to, your new home in Australia. But tell me how did that come to you, sir?
Ron used to give me little tapes of stuff, and there was a little percussive groove that he had that I loved, and so I had this phrase in my head, living in the land down under, so I just was messing around with that idea, and then one day the whole song just popped out, and there it was. It was it largely came from Ron's little tape that he gave me, which was quite trance-like. It was really hypnotic.
It's totally hypnotic for us listeners too. Tell me about how your popularity grew in terms of was it super huge in Australia, and then when do you start noticing that hey, we're big in America and around the world as well?
Well, it was very obvious. It started in Australia, then started little spot fires everywhere else in the world, and then the United States was really the last country to pick up on the band. So it was very clear that the train had left the station, and it was already becoming a bit of a runaway train at that point. So we knew that it was all happening. It was a very, very exciting, kind of phenomenal time,
Our listeners would love to hear about, that life-changing moment, when you win Best New Artist at the Grammys at 83. That just puts you on the map dates and everywhere else, and allows you to go on to do everything else. But just memories of sitting there and hearing your name called, and was it just a blur going up on stage? Were you speechless, or how did that work?
It was the most exciting thing for me was our dressing room was next to Miles Davis, and then that was next to Lena Horne, which was next to Ella Fitzgerald and Jerry Lee Lewis and Ray Charles and Little Richard. All those people were there, so that was the most exciting thing for me, was just being in that company. It's amazing.
Right, for sure. Well, I know you're a busy man, so we'll let you run, but thanks for going through some of that Men at Work stuff and your new stuff. Everyone check out the new cover album, I Just Don't Know What to Do With Myself, and you can come see him perform live Tuesday, August 18th and Wednesday, August 18th at the historic Birchmere in Virginia. So, Colin Hay, thanks so much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, too.
Thanks so much for joining us on Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. Remember to hit the subscribe button and give us a 5-star rating if you like what you hear. We'll see you next time. I wanted to take a second to tell you about an app I really enjoy. Living in the DC area is great, and Podcast DC gathers all of the local shows that I like all in one local app. Health, sports, local news, politics, and so much more. Podcast DC is the new local app with hundreds of DC area podcasts to choose from. I can earn exciting rewards just for listening and share the podcasts I love instantly. Available in the App Store or in Google Play, listen local with Podcast DC.